From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is Ag Day.
A pumpkin pest.
A lot of farmers don't know they have them until they see them. You harvest a pumpkin.
What farmers in Arkansas are dealing with that can turn Halloween into a scary situation. Could we see a new farm bill passed before the end of the year?
And I think they'll come back motivated to get something done.
The latest signals we're hearing as the damage caused by Hurricane Helene starts to come to light.
Significant devastation in the agricultural community.
An update this morning on Ag Day.
Ag Day is brought to you by Pioneer. More farmers choose Pioneer brand corn because it delivers game-changing yields. Join a winning team. Pioneer brand corn. Your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening right now, producers in the Southeast are cleaning up from the devastating effects of Hurricane Helene. The deadly storm coming ashore late Thursday night is a Category 4 hurricane, bringing damage and intense flooding across several states. Now, ahead of the storm, forecasters in North Carolina were calling the arrival of Helene one of the most significant weather events to happen in the modern era for the region. As the storm churned up the East Coast, its massive wind span stretched nearly 500 miles, roughly the distance between Indianapolis and Washington, D.C. Now, the storm couldn't have come at a worse time in Georgia, with peanuts, pecans, and cotton all in its path. About 68% of Georgia's cotton bolls were open as the storm hit, with less than 1% of the crop harvested. At the University of Georgia Tifton campus, the university's cotton team was out picking as much cotton as they could ahead of the storm.
My message is the same as it always is to our farmers, our farm families, our ranchers and producers across this state. Document, document, document. We need as much information as possible to ensure that we can get the needed resources and the needed help deployed as quickly as possible to ensure that we can be stronger on the backside of this. Definitely prayers for all of those that have been impacted, the families that have lost loved ones in this storm. Prayers for our farm families as they deal with the devastation, the significant devastation in the agricultural community.
Several landslides were reported in steep terrain across the southern Appalachians. Several flash flood emergencies with water rescues continue through the weekend into portions of North Carolina and Georgia. After a weekend of rain across much of the Southeast and into the Midwest, is the break finally in sight? Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht has an update for us.
Yeah, of course, the cleanup continues from what we had with Helene, both wind, storm surge, and water damage through the weekend. The rest of this week, it's going to be a strong trough that's going to dig through and lift what's left of that moisture up to the north and to the northeast. But you can kind of see where we're going with this extended forecast. Back out here into central and western United States, ridge of high pressure. It starts to build back in. That's going to keep, again, a lot of that tropical moisture, what's left of it, off to the east and to the northeast. Otherwise quiet back into Texas, Oklahoma, and back up here into the plains. And now there is a chance of seeing some tropical moisture, not from Helene, but a weaker system moving to Texas and New Orleans as we go through the next couple of days. But the big story is going to be the yin and the yang between the two systems, one moving out and a ridge of high pressure trying to build in. This time of year, typically what we're watching for are going to be those stronger cold fronts dropping down from Canada that would make for not only some strong winds, but cooler temperatures as well. And this picture was shared by Liz in Nebraska. She says this farmer had a total knee replacement 5 weeks ago and said he'd sure like to combine if they'd let him. And she said, I don't think anyone tells this 87-year-old no. You can tell by that smile he's not giving up on life or his knees or the combine on the farm anytime soon. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
The calls are mounting for the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to schedule a farm bill vote before the end of this year. The hope is to get it passed before funding for last year's farm bill extension expire in December. Ag Day's Michelle Rook joins me. And Michelle, Congress still has a lot of work to do.
Yeah, that's right. With the House Ag Committee passing their version of the Farm Bill at the end of May, questions remain about when the full House will vote on the measure and when the Senate Ag Committee will even release their Farm Bill text. One Washington insider shared with us what it will take to move the Farm Bill out of committee and towards finalization, and the chances Congress may have to settle for another extension. Senate Ag Committee Chairwoman Debbie Stabenow has yet to release her Farm Bill text, and so the ball is in her court. The former Senate Ag Committee GOP economist says he's not sure what the holdup is.
I don't know. I know that she released a 94-page summary of some of the priorities for the Democrats in the Farm Bill. I've not seen any bill text.
Newton says the keys to moving the Farm Bill out of committee include putting more farm in the Farm Bill and modernizing the farm safety net.
The reference prices are over a decade old, and we've seen what input costs have done. I mean, they've skyrocketed. And so we need to make an update to those reference prices. We need to protect and enhance crop insurance.
The Senate Ag Committee is still debating conservation funding and the nutrition title. Yet Newton hopes they can move a bipartisan farm bill that addresses the challenges farmers and ranchers are currently facing.
Net farm income is down over $50 billion over the last 2 years. Net cash farm income has seen the steepest 2 years decline of all time. So one would hope that the chairwoman recognizes the need in agriculture, in our farming communities, for a more robust safety net.
Dozens of House Republicans are calling on Speaker Mike Johnson to schedule a vote on the Farm Bill on the House floor before the end of the year. Newton remains optimistic about progress in the lame duck, even though the CBO scored the House bill with a $30 billion savings, which Democrats view as a cut to SNAP.
And I think they'll come back motivated to get something done, whether that's a short-term bridge, so to speak, or whether that's a farm bill, a full 5-year farm bill, get that over the finish line.
That timeline is essential as funding from the stopgap farm bill passed last year after the 2018 version expired runs out at the end of December. So if a bill isn't done, Congress may be forced to pass another one-year extension. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for Ag Day.
All right, thanks, Michelle. USDA releasing its September hogs and pigs report with few surprises for the industry currently battling through extended lower prices. Now, overall, the agency reporting 76.5 million hogs and pigs on U.S. farms. That's up slightly from September of 2023 and 2% higher than last quarter. Breaking it down, the market hog inventory totaled 70.4 million, up 1% from 2023. Breeding inventories were 6.04 million head, down 2% from last year, but slightly higher than June 1st. While the pig crop, it's estimated at 35 million head, down 1% from 2023, while sows farrowing this quarter fell 2% from last year to 2.99 million, with farrowing intentions holding relatively flat.
What this report says is more or less is that there are hogs available, but more or less the market appears to be fairly well and balanced in terms of the number of hogs coming in and the way that they're being throughput for the next, at least the next couple weeks and months.
Now, productivity continues to increase, with average pigs saved per litter standing at 11.72 for the quarter. Last year, it was 11.61. Experts attribute some of that to less disease pressure in 2024 compared to a couple of years ago. Soybeans making a big move on Friday to top off a strong week of trade. Can that continue this week? We'll ask the question in Markets Now next. And later, with Halloween quickly approaching, pumpkin growers in Arkansas are fighting to keep their crop healthy today in the country. December corn pushed to its highest level since late July last Thursday before pulling back. But on Friday, it got some support thanks to strength in soybeans. Michelle Rook is back with a preview of this week in Markets Now.
Corn and soybeans had a nice update on Friday. Naomi Bloom is back with analysis. So Naomi, the soybean market led the charge with soybean meal pushing it. Were we putting in weather premium, or was it technical, or what do you think really was going on?
We have a few things happening this week for the soybean market. The market is putting in some weather premium because it's staying on the drier side in some of the major growing regions of Brazil. So the fear would be that they're not going to have this perfect start to their growing season as they're getting their beans planted right now. Also, we're seeing the funds continue to exit their hefty net short position and some positions growing into the end of the month and end of the quarter. Then also traders starting to get ready for Monday morning's quarterly stocks report. Just not sure what it's going to be showing in terms of old crop supply out there. So a little bit of profit taking again, weather watching around the world, and demand actually, as there's rumors of China buying a little bit more on fears that maybe the South American crop isn't off to this great start.
Technically, what are you watching in the beans? Where do we have to get above to keep the funds covering those shorts?
1080 specifically is the 100-day moving average. And so that's a very big technical cue or target that trade is going to be watching for. So it's going to take extra friendly news in order to get the market to go through 1080. So for a bigger price rally to happen, we need a friendly quarterly stocks report, we need a lower US dollar, and we need to have continued bad weather in South America. Otherwise, this 1080 level on the November board might be a pretty good place to get current on cash sales.
And is corn just following soybeans, or is it trading some of the same fundamentals as the soybean market?
So it is following the beans, but also trading similar fundamentals. Now, the other leading indicator for corn that is starting to be talked about for the future has to do with South America. We've been hearing that in Argentina, their crop is going to be potentially maybe 17% lower on acreage for corn because they've been dealing with the leaf hopper issue down there. And so because they're just having so much struggle dealing with it, the farmers are going to be instead planting more soybeans and less corn.
All right. Thanks so much, Naomi Bloom with Total Farm Marketing. We'll have more Ag Day coming up.
Scan now to register for the Milk Business Conference 2024. Early bird rate expires October 31st.
So if you remember earlier, we were looking at the map, looking at the forecasted rainfall, and it presented a map similar to this in that we were expecting wet conditions, some rain over here towards the East Coast, and then 2/3 of the United States staying dry. So the precipitation outlook, the difference being, this gives us an idea kind of where things are setting up. A ridge of high pressure back into the Four Corners is going to provide some quiet weather across those locations. So between the 4th and the 10th, drier than normal conditions for nearly 2/3 of the United States. Now, I will say, in just a little bit, we'll look at kind of what the jet stream is doing. If we get a ridge of high pressure developing here, that would open up the opportunity for energy out of the jet stream to work down off the ridge and bring rainfall, not extreme rainfall, but wet weather and cooler temperatures to this part of the United States. So again, it's kind of that energy coming down off of the high and towards the East Coast. So to look at that, we'll take a look at that coming up in just a little bit. Latest drought monitor. So remember, this came out last Thursday. It does not include Helene, the tropical moisture from Helene. That will be included in this Thursday's the drought monitor update, which I assume all of this potentially will be gone in terms of that drought monitor. Still dry back out here towards the west. We didn't have any tropical moisture back into Texas or Oklahoma, so expect that drought situation to maintain. As for the jet stream coming up on Tuesday and Wednesday, so we looked at the precipitation forecast. There's the ridge in the jet stream back out here to the west, and what that's going to do, it's going to kind of cut the United States in two, not two even halves, but to the north, that's where you get the energy, the cooler air, and pockets of showers. To the south, dry and hot with this kind of forecast. This is jet stream all the way through Friday. That ridge doesn't break down all that much. We'll start to see the cooler air try to sink more north to south in the weekend ahead. Start off with Tennessee, high around 76, low of 63 degrees. Petoskey, Michigan. Find some great stones up there. Partly cloudy, high around 78 degrees, low of 60. In California, sunny, high around 97 degrees and a low of 60 degrees.
John Deere is recalling thousands of tractors. It's due to concern about brake failures. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says the recall involves about 147,900 compact utility tractors. This includes models 1023E, 1025R, and 2025R. The recall states the tractor's front bell crank in the brake linkage can fail, causing brake failure. John Deere has received 4 reports of these brake failures. That includes 1 person needing to be hospitalized and 2 impact injuries. The organization says you should stop using the recalled tractors and contact an authorized John Deere dealer to get a free repair. Machinery Pete is fascinated by all kinds of used equipment, but he says there was one machine he's always felt needed a little more attention.
Well, folks, I've written and talked quite a bit over the years about the John Deere 40 series tractor, of course, made from 1978 to 82. Now, usually I'm focusing on the 4440 or the smaller horse 4240, even the 4040. Now, all these years compiling auction sale prices at MachineryPete.com, 35 years now, I've always felt that on the higher end of the horsepower range of the 40 series, the 4840, just has never got the love that you see people talk about on the 4440 or the 4240. Although, I will say, folks, last Thursday, my head was turned. An online farm estate auction in Lone Tree, Iowa, September 26th, where this 1980 model with 2,163 original one-owner hours still had the original rear rubber, sold on the Don Hotz Farm Estate Auction by Siren Auction Sales. Riley Siren and his team there, fantastic auction company. Now, I knew this 4840 was going to sell high, or I very strongly suspected it would. 2,163 original hours. Now, for perspective, coming into the sale last Thursday, the highest auction price I'd ever seen on a John Deere 4840 was $50,000 for this one, a 79 model with 5,671 hours that sold on a June 28th, 2022 auction in Francisville, Indiana. And again, that went for $50K. Now, back to Lone Tree, Iowa last Thursday. How high did the 1980 with 2,163 one-owner hours go? $71,655. I say again, $71,655. Now, a very deserved premium there, I think, folks, because literally, I mean, where are you going to find a 4840 that nice, one owner with those kind of hours? You could travel the world and never find it. And it just made me happy to finally see the 4840 get some serious love.
All right, thanks, Pete. Well, one thing that's sure to get plenty of attention next month, pumpkins. We'll see how Arkansas farmers are working to keep a serious pest from pruning their profits in the country.
Machinery Pete on Ag Day is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Firestone Ag now offers Bridgestone tractor tires, the ultimate lineup of tires engineered to deliver enhanced wear life, durability, and ride comfort on the road. To learn more, talk to your local certified Firestone Ag dealer.
It's been an active season weather-wise in the tropics, and we're not just talking about Hurricane Helene. That's bringing early melon worms in Arkansas, and as the Arkansas Farm Bureau shows us, it's causing problems for pumpkin producers.
Melonworm, it kind of goes by a lot of names. I think a lot of farmers would say rindworm or pickleworm. It's a tropical moth species. It's blown into Arkansas every year at some point, and the time depending is how much damage we see. So it's a periodic major pest. We've been lucky enough to be funded by the Arkansas State Specialty Crop Block Program, and so we got funded to look at melonworm, especially after 2021 when we had so much damage. So we do research on kind of how to prevent them, how to control them, what pumpkin varieties actually are heavily affected. This year, we actually saw them August 8th. And so I would say it's the earliest we've seen them, definitely since 2021, which was our last bad year. I think it's mainly driven by the movement of storms from the tropical regions, especially Louisiana, Texas, into Arkansas. Once you see a moth or a caterpillar on your farm, you need to spray. When you're seeing larvae, there's a risk that they're on your pumpkins. And you're gonna see one, but they do a pretty decent job of hiding, and that's why a lot of farmers don't know they have them until they see them. They harvest a pumpkin and they realize, man, the rind's eaten or the handle's eaten into, and then they pick it up by the handle and it breaks off. We just came from a farm that actually had sprayed 10 days ago, and then Hurricane Francine came through. Couldn't spray for a few days because of either there was wind, and then it rained on Sunday, Monday, and so now they're 10 days away and we can find larvae everywhere. They could be a huge issue in the coming weeks because we saw them for the first time August 8th. By the end of August, we had fruit damage out in our pumpkin trials. Now we have closer to 50 to 70% of our fruit are damaged. So you can kind of see a month and a half is a generation and a half, up to 2 generations. That's where we start to see huge impact. So if we find it in a farmer's pumpkin patch right now, that means that, you know, by October 18th, they're definitely going to have multiplied just in that area, and they're probably still moving in from other areas. So we know we have a high risk for damage this year. Get out and find them. If you can go out and look and be pretty successful in finding when they get there, you're always going to be able to prevent a lot of loss. We were able to start spraying with some insecticides, even organic insecticides, and we've suppressed them. Look at the tips of new growth and the freshest material. Sometimes they'll kind of spin a little bit of a web and hide in the web. If you see some like leaf feeding or defoliation is what we call it, or holes down the mid-ribs, that's usually where they start to feed at. That's why we recommend trying to use products like the diamides, which are a little bit more pricey. Get out there and just look every single week, twice a week is what I would say. It may cost you, money to send somebody out there looking, but how many pumpkins is it going to take to pay for $20 or $40 a week in scouting?
And our thanks to the Arkansas Farm Bureau for sharing that story with us. And that's all the time we have this morning. From all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great week out in Farm Country.